What are some of the challenges that the open door is facing? I guess challenges that are more difficult during the fifth wave currently in comparison to maybe the first wave or even last winter.
Um, well, I find more people are getting sick all at once. You know, over the last several months, because we have COVID testing like at least twice a month. More recently, we've been having it every week, but because of the latest wave. But we would have COVID testing, and before the Omicron wave hit or Omicron wave hit, we had several months consecutively with zero positive cases amongst our users or staff. And since this wave hit, we've had multiple users sick, as well as staff at the same time, which um, and the cold snap, which is upon us now. Also, it's like a perfect storm of things happening at once, which can really stretch you thin. But we've held up well. We haven't had to stop services. We have a very uh, dedicated staff who has filled in where needed. People have had to work overtime, and no one's ever required to, but they've done it voluntarily because we want to keep the doors open for the people we serve. So, we've been able to handle it, but it has been challenging, as you said.
Thank you. Um, Maybe just speaking in general, not specifically during the fifth wave, but how much does the government, either municipal or provincial, how much support do they provide to the open door?
In this latest wave, I do have to say that we have received the support that we need to stay open. There was at one point where we had multiple staff members sick at one time. It looked like we may have to reduce services for the daytime and just remain open overnight. But the city was willing to, step in and call or organize with other sites to help us with workers if we needed. So it is. Do notice this fifth wave around that there's a lot more coordination, and they are a bit more prepared for it, which has been helpful and which is encouraging. The problem I see is that it's still a lot of things are still considered emergency services and emergency funding, but like an emergency, in March of 2020, it was an emergency, but moving into our third year now, like, 2 years in, going into our third year, it's no longer an emergency. It's more of our new reality, and I think it should stop. We should stop being so reactive and just plan ahead. Meaning, like, just an example of something that's very difficult. We have the funding for 2 workers per shift, and the CNESST guidelines say that we have to have 2 workers per shift in order to remain open. You shouldn't only have the funding for your bare minimum that you need to operate. So under normal times, if you only have the funding for 2 workers and somebody calls in sick, which you should be allowed to call in sick, it leaves us scrambling. Specifically, it leaves me scrambling trying to cover a position or have somebody stay late or whatever. Um, and it shouldn't be like that. Like, people should be allowed to call in sick, and a business should be able to continue to operate without management scrambling to try to fill a position or other staff members having to pick up the slack. Um, that's under normal conditions, but under conditions where people are more liable to get sick, like this latest wave, you know, doubly as challenging because people are going to get sick. So you're left scrambling all the time. You know, so it's, you know, things like that are can be a bit frustrating. And this latest wave just really highlights, you know, the need for more funding in general for workers and staff in order to serve the population.
What is the ideal amount of workers per shift? Um,
I mean, ideal would be like if we have a capacity of say 54 people, which is our normal, well, our post-COVID normal capacity, you know, with 40 cubicles and then 14 spots for people to, you know, come in for an hour or so. I mean, I would say ideal would be like probably 5 workers, one per 10 workers. You know, 4 or 5, but you know, 3 would at least be acceptable.
is this something that you or someone else at the Open Door have asked the city for?
I mean, I haven't asked the city because I coordinate the center, and I'm not the guy that worries about the money. I just tell my bosses what's needed and trust them to try and get it. But uh, you know, this is what we have. I'm not sure if it's been asked for or not. Yeah.
Is there someone else maybe?
I mean, I have personally mentioned it to people in the city since, you know, especially since this last wave. But once, like when you get a fund or you get a funding, it's good for like the year. So I don't know if we have to wait till the next cycle or what. But yeah, I've mentioned it to people, but I'm not the guy who handles the
Okay,
money.
okay,
So.
not a problem. I spoke to Nagustet yesterday, and when I kind of asked her the difference between this wave and the last wave, she said that last winter, there were so many emergency services, like lots of hotels, lots of different places where homeless people can stay, whether in the day or at night, more specifically. But she said this time around, there's about only two kind of how would I word this? I guess emergency services, but maybe two kind of additional places the government has provided for people to stay at night. I guess, do you have anything to add to this, or just comments on the city's maybe lack of preparation during this wave?
Well, I do find at the beginning. I mean, we're about 3 weeks into this wave now. You know, the first week, I found they were very ill prepared. You know, I think they've caught up now because they have opened several places. There's a place right here in the plateau with 150 beds they just opened, and from my understanding, there was like 60 or 70 of those places were open last night and available to people. So I feel they've caught up, but they weren't prepared at the very beginning. I mean, at the very beginning, people were scrambling to try to figure out where we're going to go, what we're going to do. Well, this is I would think this is something you should have planned for and expected to happen. You know, so the first week, I find they were unprepared, but I think they've caught up now. There are places for people to go. But once again, these are emergency places, and um, I mean, why does it take? Why should it take an emergency, a quote unquote emergency, or a crisis, or a tragedy, for us to take care of the vulnerable people in our society? You know, that's to me that's the question. Like last year, last year when Raphael Andre died. Um, all of a sudden, after he died, everyone scrambled and they made a tent at Kevin Square. And they, at the time, were making us close at 9 o'clock. Then they allowed us to stay open 24 hours, and you know they started scrambling after the tragedy. Why does it take the tragedy? Let's just like there's obviously a need. Let's not make this emergency funding. Let's not wait till there's a tragedy that happens to scramble and and do something about it. We know that every winter people freeze to death outside. We know there's a need for long term stable housing. Let's work towards that now. You know, going on my 6 year working at the Open Door, when I they've been talking about getting people long term sustainable housing with dignity 6 years ago, and it's going to take a long time, and that's down the road. Let's just put a tent here. Let's make an emergency shelter here for the winter, and if they would have just started working on a long term solution 6 years ago, it'd be ready now. That's the point. We're always waiting and putting a band aid. It's like putting a band aid on a bullet wound. It's like, let's just take care of the root problem. We also need more mental health services. I'd say two of the main things that keep or that people on the street struggle with are addiction and mental health services. If we doubled, tripled, quadrupled the mental health services, programs like PRISM, programs like SII, which Suivi Intensive Itinerance, we could help a lot of the people. I mean, before they become homeless, or once they're homeless, give them a place to be with support, with dignity. So, I mean, it's just no one, the city, the government in general, does not think about the root causes of the problems. They seem very ready to spend. There's two or three shootings, and the government gives an extra $5 million to the police. Somebody dies every year. Where's the funding for, from freezing, and where's the funding for housing for the unhoused? And if you just think about it, it's so reactionary. It's like, yes, gun violence is horrible. No one's going to dispute that. I'm sure the police probably could use extra money, but the chances of anyone I know being shot out of the blue in the street are very, very slim. All right, but the chances that somebody, if you take the metro every day, the chances that somebody that you see in that metro on a daily or weekly basis, the chances that they're going to die before next year on the street, those chances are very realistic. So it's like, why not? It affects so many people. Let's put our money where it can be useful. Let's check our priorities. Are we going to take care of the vulnerable in society or not? Let's make it a long-term solution. Just stop being reactionary and making emergency, quote-unquote, emergency shelters and emergency housing. Let's get the mental health resources out there. Let's get more addiction resources out there and get people sustainable social and low-income housing with support.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to ask, I spoke to David Chapman recently, and something he told me that's going on at Resilience is essentially, there's a bit of a lack of staff because so many of them are getting sick with COVID. And he said that there's been kind of like an evolution of this grassroots movement where homeless people who use their services are actually volunteering to help out. I guess, do you have like a reaction to this you want to share, or just any thought?
Well, we've had that. We've had that. Like Open Door used to be at Cabot Square, and we've had that ever since then. We still have that now. Like our most dedicated volunteers are people who are using the services. Honestly, without some of the people who sleep here on a nightly basis helping out, we wouldn't be able to function. We don't. You have to understand, we were always a day center, and because of COVID, they asked us to stay open 24 hours a day. So we had to However, they didn't give us money for a cook 24 hours a day, even though we're serving food 24 hours. You know, we have one daytime full time cook, and if it wasn't for the users themselves being in the kitchen, helping with dishes, helping prepare meals, helping serve, um, we wouldn't be able to do it. So you know, it's not anything new, at least for us at the Open Door. We've always needed to function like that, but especially now with the Omicron, you know, with the intense cold, we find that yeah, it's our users who are helping us to be able to do what we do. So we're very thankful and yeah, thankful to them for that, and it's encouraging. I mean, and people just they see things that there's a need, and they want to help out and they want to contribute. You know, many do. So we want to let them. So it's great.
Um, I'm sure the clients.
If you ever want to talk to one of them, I can probably have one of them talk to you too.
Okay, yeah,
If you want to talk to one of the volunteers
sure, yeah, that would
help
be
us.
great because essentially I'm trying to focus on the story uh, a little bit more on that aspect. With lack of like money, government services, the services are really supported by the volunteers. Um, so yeah, if that's possible, that would be great. I guess I mean I know that the clients, since they're using the services, they know what's needed to be done, but ultimately, do you think that I mean, I know what answer you're going to say, but I still want to ask. Ultimately, do you think that the government does really need to step in to provide more funding in order to, have more services for cooking and just more employees to help support things, especially when, other employees are getting sick?
Absolutely, and like I said, it shouldn't just be during what they're calling an emergency. I mean, it's always it's been to me. There's been an emergency every year because every year somebody dies. You know, so obviously there's an emergency out there. It should be the norm that you know that we help the most vulnerable that we help the most vulnerable people in our society, and we do need more funding for staff. Need more funding, not just for more staff, but honestly to better pay the staff that we do have. You know, this is not an easy job. You know, especially when you're dealing when you're working at a low barrier shelter, which is what we are. A low barrier shelter means that we allow in people who are under the influence of drugs or alcohol. We allow in people have untreated mental illness and with intense traumas, past traumas, plus generational trauma. So it can be while it's a very rewarding place to work, it can also be very challenging. And like every year, somebody that we're close to, somebody that we care about, passes away. That can be very difficult. So and so yeah, definitely the government, all the people who work in this field, they don't do it to get rich. They do it because they want to help people. But the government can do their part by providing the extra funding for higher pay, for more workers, and for support for those workers also, as far as mental health resources and counseling for the workers. We have each other to talk to, but maybe there's things that would help that you should be able to go speak to a counselor too. That's not, we have insurance in our job, but the insurance, doesn't cover enough. I think when you work in this field, you should be able to go talk to somebody, and the government should support you in that.
I spoke with another shelter, Resilience Montreal, and essentially they said what's going on is that as a result of lack of support from the government, a lot of the clients are volunteering just to kind of fill this gap, especially as a lot of a lot of employees are getting sick with COVID, unfortunately. So I know that John told me, you volunteer as well. That's right. Like you use the services, but
It's
you also volunteer.
yeah, yeah. Since the second day I was here, somebody asked if anybody had ever worked in the kitchen before, and I had worked at a seniors home in the kitchen. So I said, "Hey, I'll give a hand."
Okay.
I've been in there for like four
Okay.
months,
Wow.
but I've been also staying here, so I returned the favor because I now I have a place to
Okay.
stay.
So what type of
So I find it's like it's give and take. They give me a place to stay, I give them all the help they need.
okay, what type of cooking do you do? Like what type of food do you make?
I don't cook. I serve. I receive goods. I put them away. No, they have two cooks here that do all the cooking, and But right now we're being donated like well, we call it airplane food. It's like individual packages, and so we're giving that out. We just heat it up, and it's great.
Thank you so much. I guess, are there a lot of people around you who use the open door that also volunteer?
There's a couple. There's not many. There are a couple. There's Sean. There's a new guy today that started today that volunteered.
Okay, good to know. And do you find that you know the open door would it be kind of would they have a harder time without people such as yourself providing this type of support?
Well, actually, they probably would. They'd have to hire somebody from the outside, which, I'm sure there's not a big budget here. So yeah, I think volunteers are like a great help.
Thank you. And I guess I just want to know, do you like, do you think that the government needs to step in and provide more support, not just towards,
Most
yeah,
definitely, most definitely,
do you
yeah, most
do you think
definitely.
maybe not just towards, shelters, but like affordable housing, other things that kind of prevent homelessness?
I wish they had more affordable housing. I probably wouldn't be here if there was affordable housing.
And if you don't mind me asking, how long have you been using the open door and living on the streets?
I've been here for 4 months, going on 5, so it's been a while.
Um, I guess is there anything that I didn't ask that you think is I guess you'd like to share?
It's relevant.
Sorry.
Well, I mean, this place is great. It's like thank God for the open door. I mean, I went to the old Mission Brewery one night when I was like, my welfare was cut, and I was at the Salvation Army, but the rent there was 520, and I wasn't getting that much income, so they basically asked me to leave. I went to the old brewery Mission. They were full, and they sent me here. I've been here ever since.
And
Well, I mean, if there was more places, old brewery Mission wouldn't have been full, where they had to send you somewhere else. And sometimes you get transferred from here to there to there. And once you find a place, you hope to stay, and you volunteer.
do you think that Montreal should provide the money to make more places like the open door available?
Definitely. With homeless people dying on the street now, I think they just found a third one. It's like, it's definitely with the weather. And now tomorrow's supposed to be like really cold. So it's like they definitely need more either affordable housing, like shelters. Definitely shelters would help.
I'm here for the team. Like just in case John Casey is not here, I'm taking the the
Okay.
lead, and then yeah, I'm just here to accompany to support the user and to support the youth, the team too, the integration worker. And I'm also an integration worker, so if people need help, like support, um, like they want to go, like let's say the court, there's an outreach team. But if people want to talk, make some calls and stuff, I'm here for them. And yeah.
Okay, that's great. Um, so I don't know if John mentioned, but I'm a journalist from CUTV Montreal, and I put together this little I guess like a YouTube show where I essentially focus on different issues affecting Montrealers, and I'm kind of looking into how homeless shelters are being affected by COVID, and if you wouldn't mind sharing, would I be able to ask you, since you are working with the clients at the Open Door, how do you think mainly the pandemic has been affecting them in Montreal?
Like the pandemic being like worst for them, especially most of people here they have a mental problem, and it was like hard for them to understand because things change, eh? And the rules change, mask and vaccine and the COVID testing, and most of the shelter, like it's been a couple weeks. But just a moment, I'll close the door. The last couple week, most of the shelter had a outbreak, and they closed doesn't mean the shelter closed. It means that they don't take new people because they just want to keep the same person and more controllable. So that will be so much difficult for user, and for people who used to came in at Open Door, there's a big changement because at Open Door is like just like a name. It's open. Like you just have to walk in and we welcome you just as you are. You want shower and we give you stuff, and if you need support, um, if we see that you need support, we give you a suggestion, and if you need support, just come and see us. But now we have to take your name. We have like if it's full, it's hard for us to tell someone that we won't take you. And here go the crisis. Like if the person did 2 resources and it's minus 20, and it just came, oh okay, at Open Door, maybe at Open Door, yeah, I would just have to walk in, and the person came here, we have to ask his name, change your mask, wash your hands, and he has a mental health. And for most of them, yeah, but the government asked us to make the mask because they have a problem. Of course, for us, it was like we have to do an intervention. We are more passionate, like to explain them. Oh no, it's not about the Open Door. Doesn't mean we don't want you. It's the rules for everybody in the world. You have to make your name. I'm taking it just because the public health can show up here, and so especially at night, if we are full and we have to call the shuttle, and they don't pick up and the person is stuck here, all we have to give you a couple sandwiches. But I can give you a couple sandwiches, but you want to sleep, maybe it's like a couple days or 2 days on the road, you didn't find a spot. So, and the McDonald's and all Tim Hortons where they used to go, the mall where they used to go, it's closed, and it's very difficult. Most of people doesn't have family or like friends who can take them like for a few days, and the one who has friends, maybe a friend is just renting a little studio or a room, and the landlord doesn't want you to bring another person who has a problem as you. So yeah, it's a very very difficult. especially that the holidays just passed, and they really don't have someone, and most of the shelter, most of the place was closed, and they didn't have to check. Thanks God, this year open door was open, because last year we closed because we had a outbreak. So living with the pandemic, even for us intervention worker, sometimes it's difficult, because when we need the support and you call somewhere, oh no, we don't take you, we can't take the person. Most of the people just right now want to go to the detox, but with this Omicron thing, they can go to the detox, but it's like pissing off, and it's like sad when people was like, oh, they're waiting for me to commit a suicide so they will take care of my body. Yeah, that's, it's really hard. It's not in that way. So as intervention worker, here we go, you have to do the verification if this person really have a suicidal, if he's thinking about hurting himself. So yeah, most of the time it's just because they pissed off, they just want to take care of them, but they can't, because uh, yeah, most of the place they don't take, especially for the therapy, that is 3 or 6 months they don't take. And just on the regular basis, the English therapy, there's no, it's more the waiting list. First of all, like, you have to speak French, and the second one, with the pandemic, it's closed. So if you speak English, and there's a, it's like yeah, it's
Challenging.
it's so
Yeah.
sad.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing this. I just wanted to ask one more thing. John was saying that typically during a shift there are two workers who are working. He said ideally, if they had more funding, they would employ five. But as a result of this, such as Yogi, some of the clients have been stepping in to volunteer. Um, do you think that things would be a lot more difficult at the open door if the users, the clients weren't willing to kind of step in and volunteer to help out?
Oh yeah, because most of the user, they, when they feel good, they can give us a hand, but at the first they come here to have like a support. Yes, they give her, they, it's like Yogi said, it's a give back. You give me, I give you my time too, but it depends on the day, like, because if they came at open door, they came here as a user, they came here because they need support and they have a certain problem. They sometimes they like, they can do, they do a volunteer in the kitchen or like cleaning or other stuff, but there's a day too they don't feel good, and there's a day too that we have, they really need support, or they're on crisis for a different reason. So we can just like take it, okay, we have a user who helping us, we know, like, for now, like Yogi, for now is he's been helping us for a couple months now, I think 3 4, yeah, for a couple months, just before holidays. But most of the time, like before Yogi, we had another user, and he fixed like he fixed his life. He's trying to fix his life. So he found an apartment. He found his social workers like working with him. So he left. And with the pandemic, if you have an apartment, you can't come here. Like, you can come like if you need the help or a reference, but you can come here like as a user because you have a place. So we can just take like one user helping us, because first of all, they come here to us to help them. So if we just have a founding to have like you said, or like John Tessier said, like more employees, that would be great. That would be
And
great, yeah. Because like when it's holidays, it's good because most of the employees too who work on the weekend, they're student. So sometimes they have exams and stuff. So yeah.
thank you. And I guess, do you find on the days that some of the volunteers can't help, is it more, I guess, is it more difficult?
If sorry.
Like you were saying that some days, some volunteers can't help. You know, they're not feeling well. They need to kind of focus on themselves. Um, on those days that some can't help out. You know, is it more difficult for things to kind of run smoothly at the open door?
Yeah, it's more difficult because as an intervention worker, because just a couple of days, the cook tested like on holidays, yeah, the cook tested positive. So, and we didn't have a volunteer. So sometimes one of the intervention workers, sometimes it's me, since I'm the team leader, I have to go in the kitchen and yeah, we had yogi because yogi is not cooking, it's just about serving. Sometimes too we have a volunteer just like in French we said Monsieur tout le monde in this society who just came here just to give the time. Sometimes in the front desk too. That's more easier for us. That's easier in this, like we have more time. But as intervention worker, even if you're in the kitchen, your mind in on the floor. If you like someone's yell or stuff, you have to run and come here and oops, I forgot something in the kitchen. I have to go back there. Like by the time the co-workers calling the police and stuff, yes, or someone's yelling. Because sometimes people are in crisis just because yes, mental problem, but most of the time just the trauma and stuff, especially for women got raped and yeah, and the drug dealer, someone's forcing him to do the prostitution and just all of that, like the alcohol problem and so, like I said, this the therapy is closed. It's different. It's yeah, when you have to do both of the same time, yeah, that's difficult, yes.